The Isle of Transmography white paper was created for the purpose of providing a foundational concept for this book's afterlife world. It is also a work of fiction, for the afterlife is truly unknowable. Scrooge's Christmas Carol, Releasing the Last Chain. Written and illustrated by Pippin Lowe. Isle of Transmography white paper. A general overview. The afterlife within Scrooge's Christmas Carol is called the Isle of Transmography. It is controlled by the infinite consciousness, which is also the creator of universes. The infinite consciousness has a name which is sung constantly throughout the cosmos, yet humans were not born with ears that are able to hear it, so only the title of infinite consciousness is known by humans. The main function of transmography is to convert human love into usable energy called acceptance. Once the harmful experiences of a person's life have been rehabilitated, the remaining love energy is then collected and used to seed new planets. Human love experiences aid in the development of new worlds by providing examples of how to overcome harsh circumstances, strengthen free will and create solutions to problems. At birth each individual is created with at least 3 spirits, which are the mother, father, and infinite consciousness energies. Each person develops and sheds new spirits as they acquire experiences within life. At death each spirit is separated from the person through a process called entanglement. Each spirit then goes to their corresponding area within the upper portion of transmography. The purpose of transmography is to provide an environment where spirits can concentrate on, and then transform their life experiences into acceptance. The ultimate objective of transmography is to collect the experience-filled love. Many spirits are without harm and need only go through the entanglement process before they become acceptance. Other spirits will have to spend time in transmography repairing their injuries and harms. Only those in the crater of severed spirits are at risk of never completing transmogrification. Once the harmful habits and events of a person's life are cleansed from the spirit, the remaining love energy transforms into acceptance. Acceptance is the physical energy of love. The odor of acceptance is unique to each spirit, but brings the most pleasant smell the individual has ever encountered. The value of human love energy to the infinite consciousness is crucial, for it retains the experiences of the individual. This makes their love valuable to the survival of a new planet. Even though love originates from the infinite consciousness, the Creator cannot bring forth the same elements of animal survival that a person may have developed during their lifetime. It is these personal experiences that allow new planets to quickly develop into beneficial societies. The entrance of transmography is guarded by the angel Tient, and the defender, or caretaker, Apato. Tient tracks every spirit that enters and leaves transmography. Apato is responsible for the safety of both the spirits and for keeping both the road of phantoms and corridor of phantoms clear of obstructions. Apato is also Tient's pet. Most spirits within transmography think Tient and Apato may be twin spirits. They communicate through thought and touch. There are 3 basic levels within transmography. The upper level has 5 areas of cleansing called mogs. These locations are where spirits analyze their own life experiences, and then both create and act upon their task of outreach so they can be transformed into acceptance. The upper areas do not administer pain of any kind to the spirits. This level is only for contemplating the errors made, and for figuring out how to repair the injuries they caused during life. Each spirit within the upper level creates a task of outreach. The task must be devised before the spirit can move into the lower level of transmography. However, each spirit will need to overcome their dens before their task is acted upon. The lower level of transmography is called the abyss of final transmography. This is where the transmogrification process is completed and acceptance is achieved. Beneath the lower level of abyss of final transmography is an area called the dens, and it is where the harshest realizations from the individual's life events are worked through. Once a spirit revisits their worst earthly mistakes within the dens, they then must complete their task of outreach before they can become a mogrified spirit. Road of Phantoms and Corridor of Phantoms. This is the pathway spirits use to move in and out of transmography so as to achieve their task of outreach. Although its foundation is the road, the spirits always move above the road on the corridor. This allows them the ability to avoid the chute of descent which can inadvertently pull a spirit into the crater of severed spirits, causing them to become trapped within that area. Once trapped, freedom from the crater can only be achieved when Arpato brings them back to the road. The corridor has become the main avenue of travel for spirits. The power sources within transmography. There are two basic reasons each mog within transmography needs a power source. The most obvious reason being to supply the energy needed to run the functions within the mog. The second benefit of a power source is that the sparks from each mog, when in contact with a spirit, lend physical sensations to them. At death all spirits, except those who are in the fields of destructive compulsions, lose their sensation of touch. However, physical sensations are required so the spirit can learn by feeling the results of their own actions. Each mog is powered by its own source of energy. For each area's spirits have different requirements for the development of their task of outreach. Planes of Violence. This area's power source is the forest of burning trees that surrounds each pit. These trees are only on fire up the inside center of the tree. Branches and leaves of the trees are never burned, which makes these trees an ever-burning forest. The energy required to burn the trees is provided directly from the infinite consciousness. This and the abyss of final transmography are the only two areas where the energy needed is provided by the infinite consciousness. All other mogs are powered by the spirits themselves. When a spirit has a violent nature, a quiet environment is provided to the spirit by placing them in one of the contemplation chambers. Years of reflection will be required before these spirits are ready to enter a transformational pit. For this reason all power is provided to the planes of violence. The planes of violence is a difficult mog from which to get released. For this reason the infinite consciousness understands the spirits will need all of their own power to effect their release to the abyss of final transmography and the dens. Upon death a spirit within the planes of violence is cocooned within a contemplation chamber. Few sparks can penetrate these chambers, so self-awareness through physicality is not possible. This lack of feeling causes the spirits within the planes of violence to spend extra time in the transformational process. Many of the spirits, once delivered to the abyss of final transmography, visit the chambers as part of their task of outreach. These visitations are needed to provide a calming effect to the confined spirits. Cycle of Greed. Spirits in this mog stand on a steel wheel. Each spirit walks in a circle on this wheel which causes it to move around a platform made of flint. As the metal grinds over the stone, sparks fly in all directions which powers the mog. Reigns of Oblivion. The Reigns of Oblivion has a dual purpose within transmography. First, this is a narrow area that is used to create a barrier between the fields of destructive compulsions and the planes of violence. The water and light created within this ever-downpour of current is powered by the infinite consciousness. Most spirits that enter this area are destroyed. For this reason spirits go out of their way to avoid being splashed by the rains. This barrier is required in order to keep the fire twirlers out of the planes of violence. The more important usage for this area is to provide an entrance for living humans to visit transmography by way of dreams, near-death experiences, hallucinations and other mind-altering events. Again the infinite consciousness powers the environment needed for such human contact. Often a person feels blessed by their visit to transmography, but sometimes they are given reason to fear their possible future. Crater of Severed Spirits. Because the spirits within this Mog have cut their own connection to the infinite consciousness, they are then left to secure their release from the crater alone. Whenever the connection to the infinite consciousness has been cut, it is called a spirit breakage. For this reason, the power source for this Mog is generated by the spirits themselves. The quartz and lodestones that line the crater generate sparks when forced together. Each spirit has the task of climbing the walls of the crater so they can reach the ledge where mogrification takes place. As they push the stones around by climbing on them, sparks are generated. So many sparks the area would quickly overheat if the cores did not cool and lubricate the stones with their barbell. Spirits in this area are the only ones who suffer pain which occurs when sparks strike them. As spirits climb the crater, these sparks help to reacquaint each with the memories of their crimes. Pain becomes their best method for understanding the anguish they have caused to both other people and the infinite consciousness. The infinite consciousness feels sorrow for those within the crater. In order to create a non-attended to environment where the majority do gain transmogrification, a few spirits will unfortunately suffer permanent loss through the process. Not all spirits from this Mog will become a mogrified spirit. Some spirits will have their existence permanently changed when a group of cores are released. Through the force of lift that is created when cores free themselves, the spirits beneath the cores become disassembled and are then pulled upward out of the crater. Most of the spirits will reassemble when they fall back into the crater. However, with some their limbs, backbone, or head is cast out of the crater. When this happens, many of the parts are lost. A spirit can still transform into a cores with missing limbs, but the loss of a backbone or head marks the end of the spirit. All heads pushed out in the direction of the entrance will attempt to escape transmography. Arpato has been tasked with stopping them, so when inundated with heads he eats them. Otherwise Arpato puts them in his pouch and returns them to the crater. Most other limbs drop near and around the crater. This is the method that formed the dam of disconnected parts. Often other spirits traveling to and from the abyss find parts lying on the road. Most spirits will make the special effort to return them by way of the chute of descent. When cores are released from the crater of severed spirits, they fly to the abyss of final transmography. En route to the abyss, their cores body transforms into a mogrified spirit and becomes cores acceptance. As a liquid they travel directly to the infinite consciousness power source of pure acceptance. Hence, spirits within the crater never spend any time in the abyss of final transmography. Instead they are directly absorbed into acceptance. Pool of broken spirits. The power source for the pool of broken spirits is also generated by the spirits which sleep within the pool. When they committed suicide, they cut their connection to the infinite consciousness, which creates a spirit breakage. Spirits within the pool are constantly having dreams of their last moments on earth. Their salty tears provide this area's power. Sticking straight up out of the pool are several metal rods which create the connectivity needed to generate power. The spirits here are in a comatose state. They have no awareness they exist in transmography. Once they awaken, their various spirits immediately begin to go through the process of entanglement, so they can be directed to the proper Mog where transmogrification will begin. Fields of destructive compulsions. This Mog has no built-in power source. At death these spirits are still physically charged. Because of this they retain the touch sensations associated with their compulsion. Although there are countless numbers of compulsions a human can develop, all have an element of touch. It is these physical sensations that bind the spirit to their compulsion. Spirits within the fields of destructive compulsions need to transform their physical desires, so mogrification can occur. In order to do this they channel destructive sensations into fire twirlers. It is these fire twirlers that power the Mog. However, far more of these spinning and hopping flames are produced than the Mog needs. Extra fire twirlers move freely throughout this Mog. Abyss of final transmography. The power source for this area is generated by the infinite consciousness. No spirit will ever know if all, or even part, of the infinite consciousness dwells within Earth's transmography. The acceptance which is collected at the bottom of the abyss of final transmography is generated by both spirits and the infinite consciousness. When a spirit within this area finally achieves transmogrification, a blue lightning bolt transforms the spirit into acceptance. 5 Upper Mogs of Transmography. Planes of Violence. The first area within transmography is called the Planes of Violence. There are 3 pits of focus within this area: pit of anger, pit of dishonesty, and pit of physical harm. Outside each pit is a line of spirits. Each spirit is self-contained within their own private sound-proof space called a contemplation chamber. Within their chamber these spirits dwell in low light with relaxing music. Each is tasked with understanding the harm they caused. Spirits that have injured others in ways that would require work in more than one pit are only sent to the pit where the most severe act was orchestrated. From there they will work on all of their violent actions. After understanding all the harms they spawned, the spirit must then create a plan for repairing the damage. This plan is called the task of outreach. Each pit's line of contemplation chambers is of a length that is undetermined. It takes between 10 and 100 years to arrive at the pit. Once a spirit arrives at the pit, if they have not finished creating their task of outreach, they are sent to the back of the line and must wait another 10 to 100 years to reach the pit again. This returning to the back of the line is only ended when the spirit has both reached the front of the line, and decided upon their task of outreach. At this point they enter the pit, and are then instantly relocated to the dens. The planes of violence are powered by the forest of burning trees. Surrounding each pit are trees burning only up the inside center of the trunk. These fires are ever blazing and heat each pit to its transformation temperature. Cycle of Greed. The cycle of greed has those who only care about money walking in a circle with all heads turned to view the golden crown at its center. The metal circle the spirits walk on is made of steel. As spirits cause the steel to rotate over a platform of flint, sparks generate the power needed so that there is enough time for creating their task of outreach. This transformation occurs when a spirit turns its head away from the golden crown at the disk's center. This turning from the golden center can only happen after the spirit has created its task of outreach. In the abyss of final transmography and the dens, these spirits are again tempted with wealth. Generosity is often the focus of their task of outreach. Because of the grinding of metal to stone, this area is the noisiest mog within transmography. Reigns of Oblivion. This area has 2 functions. First, it is a barrier between the planes of violence and fields of destructive compulsions. No spirit can get wet by this moisture and survive. Arpato and all mogrified spirits are the only entities in transmography which can enter the reigns of oblivion without being harmed. This narrow area keeps spirits from crossing into a mog where they do not belong. Second, this area is also used by the infinite consciousness, so it can communicate with living humans through dreams, near-death experiences, hallucinations and other mind-altering realities. Crater of Severed Spirits. This area is unique to all other areas of transmography within the universe, for no other planet has developed in a way that harms the infinite consciousness the way humans do. The Crater of Severed Spirits is contained within a soft, yet nearly indestructible membrane. The general shape of the mog is like an upside-down egg with the round end being the apex of the enclosure. It is the only mog that is totally separated from the other mogs. The Crater of Severed Spirits creates the only situation within transmography that both allows for the destruction of spirits, yet was constructed in such a way as to help the spirits achieve mogrification without direct assistance from the infinite consciousness. The outcome of each spirit's destiny is never predetermined. Instead, elements of survival of the fittest within the crater of severed spirits cause difficulties. Once transmogrification is reached by a spirit, their acceptance becomes the most valued love the infinite consciousness uses for the work of provenance. Creation. A little of this love, called cause acceptance, goes a long way to seed even the largest planet. Cause acceptance is also helpful in the most troubled areas of the universe. This is the goal of human love, but it comes at an overwhelming misery for humanity in the way of the violence created from one human to another. This is the result of humans believing they were given the same powers that only the infinite consciousness possesses. The crater of severed spirits is filled with the spirits of people who have maimed and killed in the name of the infinite consciousness. Even to verbally condemn another by taking over the power of the infinite consciousness will require that spirit to spend additional time in a mog in order to remove that encroachment upon the infinite consciousness. However, it is violence that condemns a spirit to the crater. When a person physically harms another thinking they have the virtue of the infinite consciousness backing them, then that act of harm immediately cuts off their own love relationship to the infinite consciousness. For no being created by the Creator is allowed to usurp its power. The process of disconnection from the infinite consciousness is called a spirit breakage. Because of these individuals, spirit breakage, the infinite consciousness cannot help them through transmography. The infinite consciousness loves these spirits no less, but its ability to help is taken away by the human itself. Even though the infinite consciousness cannot help, it has set up the crater of severed spirits so it can aid in the transmogrification of these spirits, but each spirit is on their own to achieve release. The crater of severed spirits is located after the dam of disconnected parts. The dam of disconnected parts is a pathway that bypasses the crater. This dam is comprised entirely of the limbs from spirits that have been thrust out of the crater of severed spirits, which happens at each release of cause acceptance. Some spirits who dwell within the abyss of final transmography use the dam of disconnected parts to avoid the crater of severed spirits. The chute of descent is a suction device that is used to bring spirits into the crater. Spirits that do not belong in the crater have a fear of the chute of descent, and use the corridor to bypass the chute. All spirits dislike the smell of the barbell created by the newly formed cause. Spirits from other mogs have been inadvertently pulled into the crater when passing through the chute as new spirits are arriving. For this reason most spirits fly above the chute in order to avoid the force created by the entering spirits. However, at times the accident of being pulled into the crater traps a spirit within that area until Arpato is sent to rescue them. Arpato is the only creature in transmography that can tolerate the suction of the chute and the heat from the sparking stones. The valley that houses the crater is in a crevice deeper than sight can view. The sides of the crater are filled with 1 to 3 inch quartz and lodestone rocks. On the road, near the middle of the crater, is the chute of descent. This is how spirits arrive to the crater. The chute cannot be used to exit through. The suction of the chute will always pull the spirit back into the deep center of the crater. The thrust back into the center seems harsh, yet is only the mechanics of the mog, so its actions are without malice. Spirits within the crater of severed spirits are tasked to climb the rocky sides of the enclosure. The sparks created by the climbers activate the self-understanding they will need for their redemption. As their burdens are lifted, the climb becomes easier. Upon reaching the crest of the crater, each spirit transforms from their ghostly human appearance into an 11-eyed, 14-winged creature called the Cause. When a spirit reaches the crest of the crater, they stand upon its ledge, lift their head toward the Cause above them, widen their stance and then begin to slowly wave their arms up and down. This motion begins the transformational process into a cause. Once their wings have developed, they begin to rise and fly to join the other cause. Even though the spirit has transformed into a cause, they will often lock wings with other cause to help maintain their height near the top of the enclosure. As cause are pushed upward with each new addition to their ranks, the uppermost cores start to come in contact with the crater's ceiling. This contact begins the metamorphosis needed for the upper cores to transform into cause acceptance. It is the cause acceptance that temporarily dissolves the crater's ceiling. The opening of the ceiling then allows their release to the infinite consciousness acceptance en masse. Within the crater all cores spit up a stomach fluid called barbel. This barbel is sprayed all over the spirits climbing beneath the cores. The release of cause vomit creates lift within them so they can continue to rise. Barbel is what creates the area's odors, both pleasant and nauseating. The location of each individual cause within their hovering group is what determines the type of barbel that is vomited. As a cause rises toward the ceiling of the crater, the more refreshing their barbel becomes. The lower, or newly transformed cores emit an oily, foul-smelling barbel. However, this barbel has the greatest benefit for the spirits climbing the quartz and lodestone walls because it cools the crater stones, which reduces the area's heat. The higher cores barbel has two main functions. First, it helps to inspire the spirits so they will continue their climb, and second, upon release from the crater it helps to purify the newly arrived cores, so that they quickly transform into cause acceptance. So as the cores move closer to the ceiling, their barbel is converted from an oily stench into a silky cleansing substance that encompasses an inspirational feel and aroma. Those closest to the top spew cause acceptance, which is just under the purity of the infinite consciousness acceptance. Its smell is the most pleasant odor a spirit will ever experience. When this falls upon the spirits, they rejoice and stay motivated to toil toward the crest's ledge where they will transform into a cause. The barbel generated by the youngest cause is greasy and smells like the worst odor in existence. This barbel is also motivating, for the spirits splashed with it try to remove the barbel as quickly as possible, which propels them toward the crest of the crater where transmogrification is achieved. This greasy, stinky barbel is the only lubricant the stones have that keeps the spirits from being set aflame. And yet, at the bottom of the crater, the combined barbel of both the immature and mature cores is what keeps the lake of flames lit. As a group of cores achieve release from the crater, the upward force of their discharge causes the climbing spirits closest to the crest to become disassembled into components. Often skulls, backbones and limbs are carried upward and out of the crater before the ceiling self-heals. Whereas a spirit that has lost limbs can still complete transmogrification, the loss of a head or backbone leaves the spirit too helpless to continue the climb toward the crest where the transformation into a cause occurs. The release of body parts that have the good fortune to drop onto the road of phantoms will often be returned to the crater by spirits that are traveling to and from the abyss. Limbs that land on the dam of disconnected parts become interlinked with the older parts as they grab and hold on to the new parts. Within the dam of disconnected parts, the arms, legs and spines cast into this area create the same type of membrane that encases the spirits in the crater. This membrane creates an ultra-thin canopy which is not detectable by the spirits traveling the road or corridor. The canopy keeps the bones from migrating onto the road. The skulls of the fragmented spirits often attempt escape through the main entrance of transmography. Arpato is tasked with the duty of preventing their escape. He will return up to 13 heads by packing them into a large pouch on his belly, then releasing them back to the crater by way of the chute. Unfortunately, if overrun by more than 13 heads, Arpato then begins to eat them. Once a spirit has lost its head, it can never be mended, which ends its possibility for transmogrification. These fragmented spirits still exist, but their only form of mogrification is to ask for instant mogrification. This process will release back to the infinite consciousness its own love component. The majority of other energies and memories from this spirit are often lost. Instant mogrification is only applied to spirits who ask for it. But for these severed spirits, the ending of their existence is preferred. Any spirit can at any time request instant mogrification, but few other than those in the crater of severed spirits request it. The crater of severed spirits is powered by the spirits themselves. As they climb the crater wall, the quartz and lodestone rocks, sparks are generated, which sustains the area. The membrane that encases the spirits is also generated by the climbing spirits. The lake of flames is located at the bottom of the crater. It is constantly ablaze as the excess barbell flows into this area and collects into a deep fiery pool. The lake of flames is the harshest part of the crater. It can trap spirits beneath the lake's surface, making it nearly impossible for the spirit to rise above it. Pool of broken spirits. Of all the locations within Transmogrify, this area has a palpable feeling of sadness within it, for it is powered by tears from the sleeping spirits. Located directly across from the dam of disconnected parts, an eerie silence fills the void of motion within the pool of broken spirits. Just like the spirits within the crater of severed spirits, the infinite consciousness cannot help these spirits to awaken from the pool. Their rejection of life, by killing themselves, disconnects them from the infinite consciousness, which results in a spirit breakage. All spirits within this area are caught up in their own last experience on earth. They sleep, and dream of their death over and over. As the slumbering spirits within the bluish-white fluid gently bob along the surface, tears of sorrow flow from each spirit. Their tears provide the salt needed to power this area. The abundance of tears allows each spirit to awaken in its own time. This is the main help the infinite consciousness can give to these spirits, the wealth of time. Though the infinite consciousness cannot directly help those that sleep, it did provide help in the way it designed the location of the Mogs. The cores are tasked with flying directly over the pool in such a way that they always release some of their core's acceptance onto the slumbering spirits. The release creates lift, so the group can continue to the abyss. This powerful acceptance more often than not awakens the spirit it lands upon, but not always. Some spirits can become trapped within their own sorrow and will refuse the help that cause acceptance provides. In these cases the acceptance becomes hardened to them. Often the splash of a new spirit entering into the pool will revive nearby spirits. Once an individual rises from the pool, the various spirits within the individual are freed through the process of entanglement, so they can continue their process of transmogrification. Fields of destructive compulsions. This area is located next to the Rains of Oblivion, and across the road from the Pool of Broken Spirits. It includes spirits who have made harmful compulsions out of things that are normally controllable, such as eating, sex, laziness, etc. This area is the largest within Transmogrify and is powered by fire twirlers. The spirits in this area are known for their hermit-like attitude as a group. Fire twirlers are created by the spirits themselves. Spirits in the fields of destructive compulsions retain some ability for physical sensation at death. This happens because of their extreme focus on their physical habits. These physical passions within them must be tamed before they are allowed travel to the abyss of final transmography, where they will then enter the den of their need. The entire area of fields of destructive compulsions is covered in fire twirlers which pop up, then quickly burn out as the spirit's habit is cleansed. Each spirit may have to release several fire twirlers before their compulsion fades. Considering fire twirlers are merely an energy force, they appear to be both curious and shy. Other spirits often capture them so they can manipulate their own physical energy through the fire twirler's power. When fire twirlers burn out, their ending helps to free the spirit that released it. Since this area is filled with spirits who harm through excess, their task of outreach always requires a form of abstinence. Sanctuary of Innocence. This Mog is actually another island which is attached by a bridge to the Isle of Transmography at a location called the Point of Visibility. Except for two focused lights that shines upon the point, the entire area is shrouded in a darkness that absorbs light. This umbra shade protects the children and pets that live at the sanctuary. The bridge is used to reunite parents with their lost children, and has an escalator quality in that it travels much faster toward transmography than it does toward the sanctuary. This makes it impossible for adult spirits to enter the sanctuary of innocence. The lower levels of transmography. Abyss of final transmography. The abyss of final transmography is located at the end of the road and corridor of phantoms. It is a huge circular hole where blue lightning bolts flash and crash every few minutes. After a spirit finishes their work in the upper level of transmography, they are then sent to the corresponding area of focus within the lower level of the dens, which is below the abyss of final transmography. Most of the upper area of transmography is fixated on providing the environment needed for generating solutions to the problems the spirit created in life. The lowest level, the dens, brings a deeper empathy to the spirit about the harm they caused, to themselves or others. The dens which are beneath the base of the abyss is the most unpleasant area of transmography. For by the time a spirit reaches the abyss they will have gained enough inner strength to experience the pain they inflicted while alive. Within the dens all pain is administered by the spirit to their own spirit. Each spirit is required to inflict the injuries they caused upon others during their life to themselves. If they kill, they will be killed by their own self. If they steal, they will eliminate their own possessions. This can be frightening for the spirit, for the act of watching themselves harm themselves provides a deeper understanding to their original actions. Once they gain the required insight, the spirit is then placed with others who have done the same harms. Here they learn to resist the peer pressure that causes decent people to do hideous acts. After the needed empathy is created within the spirit, they are then tasked to either return to the earth, or travel within transmography. It is then their duty to carry out their task of outreach. Once the task of outreach has been accomplished, the spirit then returns to the base of the abyss of final transmography where transmogrification is achieved. Each time a spirit achieves transmogrification, a lightning bolt transforms them into acceptance. Dens. There is a den for every upper mog. These are cave-like rooms where a spirit, or group of spirits, works through their life's harshest issues. The den is where the most difficult and painful work of transformation is accomplished. From the den each spirit directly re-enters the road, so they can fulfill their task of outreach.